Perfect. We'll record this for everyone. And good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Shyla Springmeyer. I work with R&D Incentives Group. We're a specialty tax credit firm based here in downtown Los Angeles, and we specialize in helping companies claim the Employee Retention Tax Credit. We've been in business for over 18 years, specializing in other tax incentives. And when this program was launched in the CARES Act, we took it on as a new initiative and have been able to assist many home healthcare companies. It's one of our biggest areas of expertise. So I wanted to give a presentation about an overview of the program, excuse me, and then go into a little bit of detail of how we've been able to qualify home healthcare companies specifically, because it's a huge area of expertise for us. So we'll go over a few of the basics first. I know that, excuse me, I know that this program is really kind of a hot topic right now. So these are things that you might already know, but there is a lot of misinformation out there. So I wanted to go over some of the basics just to make sure everyone is well informed and we're all on the same page. And then I'll dive a little bit deeper into the specifics of the home healthcare industry. And then we will have time at the end for questions and answers, and also a testimonial from a wonderful franchise owner that I've worked with. So we'll go ahead and get started. And again, if you have questions throughout the presentation, just hold them for me and we'll address those at the end. And let's get started. So again, just to introduce myself, I'm Shyla Springmeyer. I've been with R&D Incentives Group for about 5 or 6 years now. And all I do is help business owners qualify for specialty incentives like the Employee Retention Tax Credit and the Research and Development Tax Credit. So we're not a CPA firm, we don't do tax returns for individuals or corporations. All we do is these specialty tax credit programs. So try to think of us as kind of an extension of a CPA firm. We're really specialists in these areas that most CPA firms won't cover because they're more generalists. So what is the Employee Retention Tax Credit? This program was enacted as part of the CARES Act in 2020. It's kind of a very unique program. It's one of a kind. We'll probably never see a program like this again in our lifetime because of the lucrative benefits and the way the benefits are received. When it was first enacted into law, employers could receive a maximum refund of up to $5,000 per employee for the whole year of 2020. And there was 2 ways to qualify. You had to meet a more than 50% decline in your gross receipts in any quarter of 2020 versus the same quarter of 2019, or you had to be partially suspended by a government mandate. One of the biggest problems with this program when it was first enacted into law is you couldn't take advantage of it if you got a PPP loan, which 99.9% of businesses did. So that's why in 2020, this program really was not utilized at all. No one really knew about it. But that led to the massive expansion of the program in the Consolidated Appropriations Act. So they really increased the benefits significantly for employers. You can now receive up to $7,000 per employee per quarter for Q1 through Q3 of 2021. And they also reduced the requirements to qualify. So instead of that 50% decline in gross receipts, you only have to meet a more than 20% decline in gross receipts in Q1 through Q3 of 2021 versus the same quarter of 2019. And then the partial suspension qualification remained the same. They also made that most important change that you could take advantage of both PPP and ERC. So that's why, this program really blew up in 2021 and 2022 is because businesses could take advantage of both. So it made a lot more sense to look into it. The final change of this program, and that's one of the reasons why there's so much misinformation out there and confusion, is because this was changed in 3 different acts. So the legislation has, changed a lot around the program and the qualifications. But the last change was under Biden's American Rescue Plan Act. So they actually, extended it to Q3 and Q4 of 2021, and then they kind of backtracked in the infrastructure bill and eliminated that. So you can only qualify through Q3 of 2021 unless you qualify as a recovery startup business, which is any business started after February 15th of 2020 can potentially qualify for Q3 and Q4 of 2021. So, just wanted to go over the 3 different acts that really had, important legislation for this program and made it what it is today. And then let's talk about the qualifications. So how to qualify for the program. And this is where I get a lot of questions and a lot of confusion from clients, because a lot of people still think that the only way to qualify is if you had a decline in revenue. And that's not true. There's 2 different ways to qualify. The first is the decline in revenue, the gross receipts test. So you have to have a more than 50% decline in your gross receipts in any quarter of 2020 versus the same quarter of 2019, or a more than 20% decline in any quarter of 2021 versus the same quarter of 2019. So, that's why this program, is so unique, because the revenue test is very black and white. Either you meet the requirements or you don't. And then the second criteria is completely separate from revenue. So whether your revenue, went up, stayed the same, or it did decline, there's a second way to qualify, and that's the partial suspension of business operations due to government order. So this criteria is, it's very broad, and the IRS left it broad on purpose because they have no way of knowing how every industry was impacted by government mandates. Everyone operates differently. Everyone tried to abide by government mandates differently. So this is something that you have to assess on a case-by-case basis, and it really does take a specialist to identify how you can qualify under this criteria. But just to reiterate, it's completely separate from the revenue, and about 60 to 70% of our clients did not have a revenue decline, and they actually had a huge increase because everyone pivoted during COVID. They found ways to make up the revenue. And so that's why it doesn't always show the challenges that were faced throughout the pandemic, especially for the home healthcare industry, because there were a lot of industry-wide rate increases. So the revenue shows growth when actually, the taxpayers weren't actually making more money. So that's why this is a really important criteria, especially for this industry. The partial suspension, there's a few different tests you have to go through to make sure that the impact was significant enough to qualify the entire business. One of the most important tests we run for the home healthcare industry is called the nominal effect test. So essentially, the IRS came out with guidance that said even if a business was able to stay open and fully operate, but a portion of the business was impacted by a government mandate, they can still qualify for the program if it was more than a 10% impact in that quarter. And they don't give guidance on, how to measure that. It just has to be a 10% impact when compared back to 2019. So the IRS essentially wants to see that pre-COVID versus during COVID, there was some impact on the business from a government mandate, so that, you can kind of substantiate that there was, a hardship to claim this program. And for the home healthcare industry, one of the biggest ways we've been able to qualify businesses in this industry is due to the inability to access facilities. I know this is a huge issue for your industry in a multitude of different ways. The first is in doing business development. So the inability to access facilities to do business development with case managers, discharge planners, that's really the bread and butter of the new business for this industry. You can't do it by phone. You can't do virtual meetings. They don't have desks. So you really do have to have that in-person interaction in order to maintain those relationships and keep the stream of new business coming. That's one issue. The other issue is also not being able to access facilities to service clients. So if you have clients in facilities, a lot of people weren't allowed in, unless it was a compassionate care situation. So I have a lot of clients in both situations where they couldn't do business development or they couldn't access facilities to service their clients. So this is an example of how we would run a test for the nominal effect that I just discussed. We do quarter by quarter comparisons to show, okay, pre-COVID, I had this many new patients versus during COVID, I had this many, to show that there was an impact from not being able to access those facilities and, generate new business, which is, that those effects are things that you guys will feel for months, and years. It's not just going to be, during the time that this program is offered, for 4 or 5 years. The pipeline of new business is something that you really cultivate and develop for years and years. So this is just an example of how we would run those tests to prove there's more than a 10% impact in each quarter. And if we can't show that there's a 10% impact, I advise my clients that you shouldn't claim that quarter. I know that, there was still challenges and struggles, but if you can't show and quantify the hardship, we always advise you that it's a little bit riskier to go down that path. And you don't have to just talk about new patients. There's other metrics we look at. We look at the number of referrals from case managers or discharge planners, the hours of service, the number of assessments in facilities. So I know that everyone tracks these things differently. So there's other kind of metrics and avenues we can look at. But I tend to find that the new patients is the most kind of impactful and popular metric in your industry to measure kind of the impact. I wanted to go through a few case studies just to show you kind of how beneficial and significant this program can be. So this is, home healthcare business with about 170 employees. And I know you guys have a lot of part-time employees, so that's never kind of a solid number. There's a lot of turnover as well, and that's fine. Part-time and full-time employees do both qualify. But this business, had the issue of not being able to enter facilities to do business development. We were able to show the 10% effect in each quarter, and their total refund check amount was, just 1.5 million in totality. So, and just to clarify that this program, you're not going to receive a tax credit because it's claimed on an amended basis. You're going to receive a cash refund check. So this client received, these amounts in a physical check from the IRS. So you can really kind of imagine how substantial this can be for a business owner, especially through the challenges of the pandemic. And with government programs like this, we typically don't see them, distributing funds like this. Usually a tax credit is to offset, tax, and you have to wait till you have more tax, or you have to prove what you're using the funds for, like the PPP loans. So we have never seen a program in our, 18 years of doing business that is this lucrative and is actually a cash refund program. So that's why this is so unique, and is something that we'll probably never see again. This is just another case study. This was another home healthcare business, about 100 employees, only 30 to 40 full-time. And they qualified under the partial suspension, again, because they weren't able to provide care to clients in facilities. I do find about almost everyone was impacted by the business development. That's just such a huge issue for your industry. But also this inability to access facilities for clients was a huge issue as well. And this client received about 683,000, and we qualified them for about 4 quarters. So we do it on a quarter by quarter basis. It's not a cookie cutter approach. We want to make sure that we can evaluate this individually, because everyone does operate differently, was impacted differently. So it's not always, 1 quarter or 6, sometimes it's 2 quarters or 4. But I do find with your industry, the impact was so severe that it's typically about 5-6 quarters. So about the entirety of the program, because the Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services didn't lift all of their restrictions on facility visitation until November 12th of 2021. So their restrictions were in place the entirety of the program, its availability. So that's why it's so impactful for your industry specifically. Just a little bit about our company, and then I'm going to turn it over to Bert to give a small testimonial, but just wanted to let you know a little bit more about us. Specifically because there's so many companies out there that incorporated just to capitalize on this opportunity. I get really worried when my clients or prospects call me saying, ERCinitiatives.com is telling me they can do my refunds in 3 days, or, I would be really weary of anyone overpromising, or anyone that hasn't been incorporated for a long time who's promising to do this for you, because we're seeing a lot of abuse with this program because the benefits are so significant. And unfortunately, a lot of these companies won't be around to defend the work if it's ever reviewed. They're going to get their commission check, and then they're going to close shop in about a year when the program sunsets. So that's why it's really important to work with a provider that is, has a great reputation and that will be around to defend the work that they do for you. We've been around for 18 years. We specialize in the research and development tax credit. Initially, that's our main bread and butter. It's another tax credit that's similar to the ERC, but much more technical. It's for companies that invest in innovation and product development. So, Google, Apple, things like that, but on a much smaller scale. We're more small to mid-sized business owners. And our team is comprised of about 48 individuals, project managers, technical directors, tax attorneys, CPAs, most of which who come from the big 4 accounting firms. So we specialize only in these tax credits, and this is all that we do. So we're experts just in this. We charge based on success, and our fees are all inclusive with full audit support, which I can't stress this enough. That is one of the most important pieces of claiming this program, is making sure that you have a provider that will be able to provide documentation and also back up and substantiate the credits and defend them if they're ever questioned. We refund our fees. We're the only provider that I know of that will refund our fees if any disallowance of the credits that we identify is claimed. So, that gives some peace of mind to, taxpayers, knowing that some of our skin is in this game too. We're not just going to claim millions in credits and then, run away and not be around to defend the work. We'll actually refund our fees back pro rata. So we're really backing up the work that we do. A lot of people ask me what's the process, and all it takes is a short 20-minute intro call to really determine, if you can be eligible. And then we have to walk through some of those other tests that I showed. But it's always worth the 15 or 20 minutes to make sure that you haven't been misguided or that you haven't underclaimed this program. I have a lot of people that only did the gross receipts test, and they missed out on, 5-6 quarters because they didn't evaluate the partial suspension because their CPA wasn't familiar with it. So if you haven't, really looked at it thoroughly, please make sure you do, because this program is sunsetting very soon. The federal deadline is 3 years from the date the original 941 was filed. So we're starting to come up on deadlines for Q2 of 2020 here at the end of Q2 of 2023. So it's kind of a cascading effect. There's still time, but it's definitely make sure you've looked into it thoroughly with the appropriate provider, someone who specializes in this program. We have thousands of clients for the ERC program. It's a huge line of service for us now. And I'd say about 30% of our clients are in the home healthcare industry. So Bright Star Care, Home Instead, Amada Senior Care, Comfort Keepers, Visiting Angels, Assisting Hands, all of those franchises, we pretty much cover them all. So it's a huge area of expertise for my firm and for me as well. About 90% of my client base is in the home healthcare industry. So I'm here to be a resource for everyone. And even if it isn't, I'm not just here to get clients and revenue. I'm here to be a resource and provide information. So I'm more than happy to jump on a call or answer any questions via email if you have questions about the program, even if you've already claimed it. So that's why I love working with the Home Instead franchise network so much. All of the owners are so wonderful, and I really want to be a resource for all of you. So that's it on my end. I'm going to let Bert say a few words about his experience working with our firm, and then we'll open it up for questions and answers.
Awesome. Thanks, Shyla. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Bert Koppel, been in the Home Instead network now for almost 20 years, owner of 2 franchises. When I first heard about this tax credit, I started doing some research on different companies to see who really was going to be the best fit, someone that I could trust, because again, we're talking about large sums of money and of course the government. So when you're talking about those two things, you want to make sure that you have someone that's going to be on your side. I met Shyla, I did a couple calls with her, and it became very apparent right up front that her company stands behind their word, which I really appreciated, and they had the longevity. A lot of the companies I talked to literally had just been open a couple of years. They didn't have all the details that Shyla's company did have. For example, there were still some that were basing it off of what my CPA was telling me, that you don't qualify because you grew in revenue, even though our client base shrunk significantly, and we had to terminate our home care consultant because we weren't able to do any marketing. And so that really limited our scope of our growth. After working with Shyla, we got basic information reports that we'd simply pulled out of ClearCare. So it was a very simple reporting process. It's not just numbers that we made up, but it came out of a third-party operating system. So I felt comfortable with those numbers that we were providing. Once that was done, they did their full analysis, kicked it back and said, look, here are what we believe your credits will be based off of your payroll reports. All of that was simply pulled from PayPlus, which is who we use. So I didn't have to generate any reports whatsoever. I simply did all that through PayPlus. They got the reports over to Shyla's team. When that was done, it came back and our estimated tax refund was significant. And we're talking over $2 million in tax credits that we were eligible for to come back to us. Once it was reviewed and Shyla's team tested it to make sure that it looked right, they actually produced a document, I think it was like 32 pages, that explained why we were eligible for the tax credits, what mandates were done for the state of Michigan, the government, the governor's orders, the Department of Health and Human Services, all the way down to the county, Oakland County, Macomb County. There are all these regulations of what we could and could not do and why it impacted our business. And it was all spelled out. So I felt really confident knowing that if there is going to be an audit down the road, that I have a company that did this, it was third party, here's the data that was preserved and saved, because it's going to be difficult to go back and find all this stuff 6 or 7 years later if need be. And so that was great. What I also appreciate about the company is that this was the only company at the time that did not require me to pay anything up front. I was not going to pay somebody a 15% retainer fee off of $2 million for credits that I was hoping to receive, 8 to 12 months into the future. And so it did take a full 10 months for the credits to be issued. When they were issued, I simply took a picture of the check, sent it to Shyla's team. They then invoiced it for me, and that's how they were paid. So I didn't have to pay anything out of pocket until the credits actually came in. And then, of course, I got to do everyone's favorite thing, which was pay taxes. So then we had to amend our taxes. And let's be honest, about 42% of the money went away just in taxes. But again, it's money that I wouldn't have qualified for had I not gone this route anyway. So it's been great working with Shyla, incredibly responsive. I mean, she gives you her cell phone number. You can, you can reach out to her via email or cell phone. It just does take time. You're waiting a very long time and you're dealing with the IRS. So you can't call and find out where you are in the queue. You simply have to take PayPlus's word that they have taken the amended 941s. They sent them in. They send you copies of them. So you hold on to that date and basically just count 10 months from there. And that's when you can expect it to potentially come through. With our second franchise that we purchased later, we just did the exact same thing again. It's a much smaller franchise, but we're still qualifying for 5 of the 6 quarters with that franchise as well. So it's been a really good experience. I would highly recommend it. Again, it is it's a 15% fee of what they do, but you don't have to do any of the work. And again, they're going to go to bat if in the event that there is an audit, and they give you all the documentation showing why they believe you qualify as well. So I had a great experience. I highly recommend Shyla and her team to all the homestead owners who are interested. At this time, we'll open it up for questions. I know we did have one that was typed in by Joe. Shyla, he says, my son opened his homestead office in 2020. He was impacted, but has no 2019 comparisons. I know one of your slides did say that if you open in 2020, you may be eligible. So maybe you can talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So there is a stipulation in the program for recovery startups. If your business was started after February 15th of 2020, and your average annual gross receipts for the past 3 years are less than $1 million, which is kind of a given, then you can automatically qualify for Q3 and Q4 of 2021. So there's that potential qualification. I do have clients that were opened, in 2020, and they don't have any data to refer back to kind of run these tests, the nominal effect, and kind of prove the impact. And, we can still qualify you for other quarters just based on kind of verbal testimony. It's, that's a conversation that I kind of go through individually with clients to make sure that they understand there is a little bit more of a risk because there's not kind of that quantifiable data to back things up. But we feel really passionate about businesses that were open during the pandemic. I mean, it was just so much harder to, even run a business, let alone open one and try and grow it. So that's, there's a couple different ways to approach that, but there's the recovery startup, and then there's other options as well.
This is Joe DeLauder here. I have a question. So I've talked to several different people. A lot of hesitation on my end just because, the unknown of big government saying, hey, all these things. I might have come in late, so I don't know. Did you share your contact information on like one of the slides, or is that available? Or
I actually didn't, which I should have. I can send that out to Dawn, and she can send out to all participants that were in this call, if that's helpful.
Yeah, because I'd like to have a separate conversation, not in the group setting here.
Absolutely.
So we're supposedly qualified, and I have a lot of agita about the whole thing, and but I just kind of want to talk it out a little bit, because I don't know if this company is even going to be around in like 6 months. So
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be more than happy to have that conversation. And again, I'm here to be a resource. So even if someone you've already worked with someone or anything like that, I'm happy to provide information and answers, because there is a lot of misinformation about this program, and a lot of people weren't guided correctly. So I'd be more than happy to speak with you, Joe.
Like my CPA and some other company or CPA firm said, yeah, Joe, you don't qualify. I'm like, I don't believe you. So, I mean, I don't believe that at all. So I like to trying to run that by and stuff. So thank you.
Absolutely. And that's something we run into every day. CPA firms, we work with hundreds of CPA firms in Southern California. We're kind of like an extension of a CPA firm, and they're great, great CPA firms. They're super sharp, very, very, very reputable, but even they don't understand this program thoroughly enough, and they've disqualified their clients, and then they send them to us to just double check. And it's, so this is just something that a CPA won't know in and out, because they're not doing hundreds of these studies. They didn't, that's not what they specialize in. They're generalists. So yeah, that's something we run into a lot. So more than happy to speak with you later, Joe. Looks like Chuck had a question. Are the tax credits still only through 2020? Do you think 2021 will be included later? So the program is only for 2020 and 2021. It's Q2 of 2020 through Q3 of 2021 is the general population, and then there's the recovery startup option, which is only Q3 and Q4 of 2021. So there definitely will not be a renewal of this program for 2022. There was a push for that in legislation, actually, and everyone was really hopeful, but I personally didn't think it was ever going to go through, because this program is so lucrative. The amount of money that they're kind of pumping out for this program, that they're definitely not going to extend it. So it is still available for 2020 and 2021. There's still time to claim it for both years. You'll start coming up on deadlines for Q2 of 2020 at the end of Q2 of this year. So, it's kind of a cascading effect, quarter by quarter.
Great. Just so everybody knows, I put Shyla. I hope that's okay, Shyla. I put your email address into the chat. So if you all just want to copy that, feel free. I'm sure she would love for you to reach out to her.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Dawn. I appreciate that.
Of course. Does anybody else have any questions that they either want to ask verbally or put in the chat? We've got plenty more time here if there are more questions.
Perfect. It sounds like everyone's good for now. But again, if anybody wants to reach out to me individually for any sort of information, questions, it doesn't have to be for a call to assess your eligibility. I'm here to be a resource for this organization. And I just really appreciate everything that Bert and Dawn did to put this together. I'm so appreciative of working with all of the franchise owners in Homestead, and being a preferred provider for the association is an honor. So we really appreciate this. And we're here to be a resource for all of you in any way that we can. And thanks so much to Bert for the lovely testimonial. It was such a pleasure working with you, and you've been so integral in bringing our organization into Homestead. So I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for joining us today, everyone.
Awesome, Shyla.
Yeah, we appreciate your partnership, Shyla. I should have said at the beginning that R&D Incentives is a vendor partner of the association, and so their information is on the website as well, on the vendor page. So we appreciate their partnership. Very, very important to us, and we value it greatly.
Absolutely. And this video will be made available to all the association members. And I know Dawn will be sending out an email to all membership as well. So if you know someone who's still interested in this, feel free to share this video with them. We'd love to get this out to them. So thank you, everybody, for coming today. It's great seeing you all.
Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful day.